So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, our guest speaker, a lady that I really look up to, Inviolata Ngarara, who will be coming up to address us this morning. She holds the position of Senior Specialist for Workers' Activities within ILO, Bureau for Workers' Activities. She's part of the ILO Decent Work Team for Eastern and Southern Africa, based in the ILO Pretoria office. She's responsible for supporting workers' organizations in 12 SADC countries, including Southern African Trade Union Coordination Council, in promoting and attaining the goals of ILO. Inviolata is a lawyer by profession with many years of experience in undertaking capacity building programs and training activities for workers' organizations on a number of diverse thematic areas, which include international labor standards and their strategic social protection, social dialogue, collective bargaining and organization, gender, migration, and women's rights. Before joining ILO, she was the Education Secretary for the Building and Woodworkers International. Can we please give a round of applause to this amazing woman as she comes up front to address us? Mage Inviolata Ngarara. Thank you very much. Welcome to Swaziland.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. I send you fraternal greetings from the Office of the International Labour Office based in Pretoria. The office in Pretoria is responsible for 4 countries, of which Swaziland is one of them, including Lesotho, South Africa, and Botswana. Because of that relationship between our office and the country of Swaziland, we found it very, very important, if not imperative, for us to respond positively to your invitation. So to all the IPM sponsors, all the partners, the stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, I should say, as the ILO, we are also greatly honored to deliver a keynote address to the IPM Swaziland 4th Annual Convention, which is taking place at a very important time within the cycle and the work of the ILO. This is a truly very important day for the ILO, and we are delighted that we have been invited to be part of this convention. Thank you once again. We don't take it for granted, because you could have invited any other UN agents, but you found it very befitting to invite the ILO and to engage with us in what is perhaps one of the most important debates of our time, the debate on the future of work, or the so-called 4th Industrial Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also state that as the ILO, we fully align ourselves with the theme of the IPM 4th Convention, which is entitled Aligning Business Leaders with the Digitalized World. Put in other words, you are here to position yourselves as business leaders so that you are able to harness the opportunities that are presented by the digitalized world, or the 4th Industrial Revolution. This substantive theme is very topical and is very relevant and timely on the agenda of the ILO globally. I was asking myself as I was preparing for my participation in this convention, whether the 4th Industrial Revolution is a current phenomenon, or it's a future phenomenon? Is it something that is still yet to come, or it's something that is already with us and part of us? While I was asking myself this question, where I stay, I've been staying in that place for almost 7 years. When I started staying there, it's a gated estate, a gated community. Coming into the community or the estate 7 years ago, we required 7 security staff members to be on duty. And each of the 7 will be having a specific task to ensure entry and exit of people coming into the estate. Everything was manual. One person will be opening the gate, one person will be taking the details of the car that is coming in and the person who is driving that car. Then the other person will also be manning the gate accordingly. So it was 3 security guards on the entrance and another 3 at the exit. That was 7 years ago. Time has moved, technology has evolved. Today, we only have 2 security guards. They are not touching anything, the gate, they are not touching, everything is done by merely pressing a button. So with that, I am telling myself that this so-called 4th Industrial Revolution, while we are taking it as a phenomenon of things to come, it's something that has already encroached in our spaces on a daily basis. Another example on whether this 4th Industrial Revolution is a future phenomenon. 1 year ago, I was traveling in another airport. I don't remember which country it was. And normally when I go to the airports, I'm chronically punctual. So I got to the airport and I was expecting to get the normal check-in counters with the check-in ladies and gentlemen to be handing over your passport and they allocate your boarding pass and the rest. I got there, the airport was very silent. There was no movement. And I looked at my watch. I thought I was late for the flight, but I was 1.5 hours ahead in time for the flight. Looked around to find out who should assist me. There was no one. All I could see was machines of this size. Then I realized that future that we've been talking about, no one is going to ask you for your documents. You just need to go to the machine, press a button, and follow the instructions all the way to the aircraft. So what I am saying is, in as much as we might want to project the future of work or the so-called 4th Industrial Revolution, is in the future, yes, but some of the future scenarios we are already experiencing them now in the 2 examples that I have given. So to put everything into context, before I talk about the ILO perspectives on the future of work, let me just remind ourselves a bit about the ILO mandate. The ILO seeks to promote opportunities for men and women to obtain productive and decent work in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. This has been the foundational principles of the ILO since the organization was founded in 1919. And within the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution, the technology revolution, the mandate of the ILO has become more relevant now, and more importantly, within the context of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Because the 4th Industrial Revolution is about the world of work. And the ILO, as part of the UN, is mandated to ensure that it addresses and deals with the issues of the governance of the world of work. I also think that if you have been following the work of the ILO, you all know that in 2019, in a year's time, the International Labour Organization, which is the oldest UN agency, celebrates its centenary or 100 years of existence. It's a historic moment for the ILO. The ILO is convinced that we should use the centenary celebration not to look back at what has been done by the organization 100 years ago, but we are going to dedicate our centenary to look at what we will need to do better in the future. So we are also in a context where the organization is positioning itself like the IPM SWAZILAND to ensure that our work, our mandate is aligned to the future challenges that are presented by the fourth industrial revolution. In the run-up to the ILO's 100th anniversary, 7 centenary initiatives are being implemented globally. These are part of a package of activities aimed at equipping the organization to take up successfully the challenges of its mandate of social justice in the future. To this end, in 2013, the ILO Director General, Mr. Guy Ryder, launched the ILO Centenary Initiative, where he presented the following 7 centenary initiatives. So the fourth industrial revolution within the context of the ILO, it's a package of 7 initiatives, of which the future of work or the fourth industrial revolution is part of the package. First in the package is an initiative to end poverty. And this initiative aims to promote multidimensional responses through the world of work, labor markets, and social and employment promotion as a way of eradicating poverty. ILO envisages a future where there is no poverty. It's a mammoth task, but with the recent adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, we see that as also a framework to ensure that ILO addresses poverty. And I'm happy to also note that in the opening remarks, the acting president of IPM Swaziland made reference to the need for business to also associate itself with the Sustainable Development Goals. Because if you look at the 7 goals, there is a lot of business case for us to see how we can harness the Sustainable Development Goals to drive businesses into the future. The second initiative in the package of 7 is the Women at Work initiative. This seeks to review the place and conditions of women in the world of work and engaging workers, employers, governments in concrete action to realize equality of opportunity and treatment. Again, this is a very important initiative within the context of the future of work, in view of the fact that women historically, particularly in Africa, including in other regions of the world, have been marginalized for a long time. We also hope that within the discussions of the conventions over the 2 days, we would also see what key initiative within the business environment we will be implementing as IPM Swaziland to ensure that we leave no one behind, particularly women in business. The other third initiative within the ILO package of 7 is the Green Initiative. The Green Initiative is also part and parcel of the future of work. We are faced with challenges of climate change, carbon emissions, and the like. So ILO office-wide knowledge policy advice and tools for managing a just transition to a low-carbon sustainable future is one of the key issues that is underpinning the centenary initiatives. The fourth initiative relates to the implementation of international labor standards, bearing in mind that one of the main reasons for existence of the ILO is to ensure that international labor standards that govern the world of work are adopted and are implemented. The other initiative that is also interesting for the IPM Swaziland is the Enterprise Initiative. And under this initiative, the ILO seeks to establish a platform for ILO engagement, particularly with enterprises, which would contribute to their sustainability and to the ILO goal. So one of the main areas that we will be looking at within the initiative of the Future of Work is enterprise development, because research has also pointed to the fact that most of the jobs will come out from enterprise development, so that we have more people that are generating businesses, establishing businesses, more people that are seeking for employment. The sixth initiative deals with the governance. ILO is also reforming its governance structures, assessing the impact of our declarations all the way back to 1919 to ensure that we are aligned to the current trends and the future trends. Then the last initiative, which is very, very important, which has also taken center stage globally, is the Future of Work initiative. So the centenary initiative of the ILO has 7 goals and 7 conversations. But the conversations that has taken center stage is the Future of Work. And around this conversation, ILO is initiating and cultivating a global dialogue on the future of work, so that we build ILO's ability to prepare and to guide governments, workers, and employer organizations to better meet the world of work challenges of the next century. All 7 centenary initiatives are relevant and important, as I have mentioned. But since the theme of the IPM Swaziland Convention is also touching on globalization, is also touching on the future of work, we thought that it will be very important for ILO to associate ourselves with your convention. Having said this, ladies and gentlemen, it is also pertinent to mention that the Future of Work initiative has attracted a lot of interest even within the SADC region. The SADC countries supported by the ILO has organized a number of national dialogues to reflect on the long-term challenges the world of work is confronted with. Conferences, hearings, research, workshops, and other activities have taken place at African level. And I'm happy to also mention that in Swaziland, such a dialogue was also organized. It was a tripartite dialogue, and ILO was using the consultant services of Babe Gumbi, who is part of our panel today. Globally, over 100 ILO member states have organized such dialogues. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is why this has become very, very topical, particularly the discussion on the 4th Industrial Revolution. Here are some perspectives. The ILO has detected that in the last 10 years, there has been a sort of chain reaction in our societies. And I think this is also true for Africa and for Swaziland, that things have been changing. Starting from the economic collapse of 2008, which has generated social consequences and social dissatisfaction we have been incapable of responding to effectively. As a result, we have been witnessing a process and a period of transformative change in the world of work, with a lot of speed, a scale, and profundity that we probably have not witnessed before. So it's a vicious circle of things that are changing every day at a scale that we cannot measure, and we need to keep up the pace. We are currently thinking and talking in terms of the Internet of Things. Everything that we now need to do today in business, it's via the internet or the web. So there is new language like the Internet of Things, the platform economy, and we are using terms that we probably have not been familiar with 10 or 5 years ago. So very rapid, profound change, with people having the sentiment that they are not in a position to control that process. They are spectators and they are passive recipients of the effects of the change, and not in a position to shape the direction that they are taking. But I'm happy to note that within this speed, within this change that is taking place, your convention has taken a step back to come up with a program that will try and articulate the pace at which things are going and come up with a strategic response. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also underline some of the key drivers of change, the key trends that are informing the fourth industrial revolution from an ILO perspective. The list might not be exhaustive, but from the researches that we have been undertaking since 2013, the world of work is undergoing transformative change under the impulse of technological innovation. And this has been alluded to by the acting president in her opening remarks, that this revolution has taken over our lives. I can't imagine a day without my cell phone or my iPad. I can't imagine a day without checking my internet. Our lives are revolving on technological innovation. So the question is, how are we going to harness the tools that technology provides to enhance our HR processes? The emergence of virtual workspaces. 10 years ago, for one to be employed, they have to report to a workplace, and the workplace was defined. 10 years ago, the relationship between employer and employee was defined. Everyone would know who their employer is. But with the evolving context, we have virtual working spaces. People can work from anywhere. You can work from home, you can work from cyberspace, and you are connected in the work that you'll be doing. Those are some of the trends. The issue of virtual employers. I don't know whether we have Uber in Swaziland, Uber drivers. Maybe the country is so small and everything is so coordinated that you don't require Uber. But the Uber revolution is something that is also showing us that the fourth industrial revolution is with us. The issue of Uber is there is no clearly defined employer in terms of who is employing Uber drivers. Because for all we know, Uber is an app. So this is one example which shows how the world of work is evolving. We have the emergence of virtual working places. You can work from anywhere. We also have virtual employers. With multinational enterprises, I can work for a company which is headquartered in Greece or in Brussels. I have a relationship with that company, but I never know who my employer is. The other trend that is also informing the future of work or the fourth industrial revolution is the demographic shifts. We have some populations in other regions of the world where the populations are aging, and much of the population are young people. And for Africa, the issue of youth, they are the majority, under a backdrop where we have a huge statistics on youth unemployment. Related to the trend on demographic shifts is the issue of migration. We all know about the bitter travels by people from Africa to Europe and how many people have died in search of better employment opportunities. Another key driver of the future of work is the issue of climate change. We are already witnessing it. We were talking this morning about what is happening in Durban. The floods, the vicious winds, and everything that is so disastrous. Things that we never used to encounter a few years ago. Climate change, we used to think it was a European phenomenon, but we also see that in Africa, we are faced with these challenges. The issues of greater inequalities and exclusion within the labor market, the emergence of the informal economy, which is above 60% in most African countries, including in my own country, Zimbabwe. The informal economy is above 90%. meaning everything is informalized. So these are some of the issues, the trends that we need to grapple with as business when we are talking and reflecting on the fourth industrial revolution. Other trends that will be important for you to reflect on is the low and declining national investments in labor market institutions and social dialogue. To what extent are we investing in institutions that are responsible to do research on labor market, on the government ministries that are responsible for ensuring that social dialogue between workers, government, and employers takes place as it is supposed to be? The issue of growing employment insecurity, part-time jobs, short-term employment, the issues of casualization, short-term jobs is a trend that is already with us. And what are the projections for the future in terms of growing employment insecurity? The issue of poor working conditions, including withdrawal of benefits secured in the past. If working conditions are not where they are supposed to be in the businesses and the enterprises that we are organizing, what will be the future scenario? It will be a race to the bottom, where there will be no standards and no governance. These are some of the issues that we need to reflect on. Coupled with issues of political instability, where there is no political instability, where there is no political stability, there is no business environment to talk about. Where there is no political uncertainty, there is no business environment to talk about. So these are some of the issues that we thought, ladies and gentlemen, we can flag from the ILO perspective to inform how we are dealing with the future of work. Let me also mention that within the Future of Work initiative, the ILO has commissioned 4 conversations so that in all the global, regional, and national initiatives our office is supporting on the 4th Industrial Revolution, these conversations are underpinned by 4 key themes. The first theme that we are looking at from an ILO perspective with a view to try to anticipate what will be the future scenario is the theme on work and society. Reminding ourselves that work is crucial for social function. Without work, we cannot talk about human dignity. People go to work so that they achieve their aspirations as human beings. So this first pillar on work and society seeks to examine the current changes taking place in the world of work and what implications they will have for the relationship between work and society. In particular, how work and society will be manifested by technological changes. What this means that is, do we still, in the future, are we going to have trade union organizations, for example, in the formations that we have today, in view of the fact that most of the workers are in the informal economy and workers' organizations have not reached out to organize those workers? Are we going to have the business organizations that we have today under the apex of a business unit in Swaziland, in view of the fact that we have so many small, medium enterprises that are also contributing to the economy of the country? So these are some of the reflections that will be taking place under work and society to try to project how is work going to be defined in the future. The other pillar of the conversations looks to decent jobs for all. And this seeks to address the frequently asked question about where will the jobs for the future come from, particularly jobs for the young people. The opportunities with young people is that they are technologically savvy. So how are we preparing them as human resources practitioners so that we harness their youthfulness and their expertise to leverage on technology to create new jobs. Decent jobs for all has been a rallying call for the ILO, and we recently intensified this call through our Future of Work initiatives. If we go to statistics, according to the ILO, 600 million new jobs will need to be created across the globe to simply cater for young workers entering the labor market, to meet internationally agreed targets and increase the employment numbers of women. One of the key challenges confronting policymakers relates to finding a balance between job creation initiatives on the one hand. Are we going to create just any job to meet the quantities, or we are looking at the ILO concept of decent work within the concept of rapidly advancing technology? So where do we draw the balance between job creation and ensuring that those jobs are quality jobs? Then the other issue that the conversation is going to focus on is the organization of work and production. And this seeks to tackle the issues of emerging platform economy, work that is being done in global supply chains, and the nature of the enterprises in the future. The issue of global supply chains is a critical area that ILO is trying to look at. What is the decent work agenda within global supply chains? I also believe that within Swaziland, we have work that is being done in Swaziland to facilitate businesses that are abroad. The textile sector is one example, where most of the garments that are on the market in high-end shops in Europe, in Britain, are tailored in Swaziland. But the label is never made in Swaziland, but it's part of the global supply chain management. So ladies and gentlemen, I think as part of our reflection, we need to find out how in our conference these issues are going to be articulated. And we are happy as the ILO, when we were looking at the program for the next 2 days, that you are also going to be looking at issues that are aligned to the ILO Fourth Industrial Revolution. Your program is also going to look at employee engagement and digitalization, which is something that is aligned to the focus of work of the ILO. We also noted that your program is also going to look at issues on the digital era and human capital growth, a very, very important topic. One of the key issues that we also noted was that you also discussed the digital future of businesses, looking at what are the risks and what are the opportunities. Another important item on the program is on leveraging technology for positive organizational change. Then the other one that is also very important for the ILO is the one on leadership accountability within the context of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and so forth. So what we see on your program is an organization that is already looking ahead, looking into the future. And this is what has informed your discussions for the next 2 days. Let me end by raising some of these key issues that you might also want to reflect on, and we are able to support as the ILO in the work that we'll be doing ahead, because these are some of the key priorities that we are facilitating in the work that we are doing globally. The issue of education and training system, the issue of skills, the need to see the extent to which our curriculum in the universities, our curriculum in the vocational education centers are aligned to the needs of the labor market. We find that in most of the countries in SADC, there is a mismatch between the skills that the labor market is looking for and what universities and institutions of higher learning are bringing to the market. As a result, we have a lot of unemployed graduates. I wish to refer to a vocational training center in one of the countries that we work with when we are talking about issues of skills mismatch. It's a vocational training center that has been established during the time that country attained independence from the British, meaning that the curricula of that vocational training center is modeled along the British system. It was said to note last year that the curricula for their automotive training, where they are training artisans to be artisans for the automotive sector, is still modeled around the 1970 model of the VW Golf. This is what they are still teaching. This is what is still informing their modules in a world where everything is digitalized. So coming out of that training center, those students have nowhere to go because their skills are no longer matched with the VW Golf of 2016 or 2017. So we highly encourage your organization to work with vocational skills training centers to ensure that we give them information on what skills are required in the labor market, particularly the labor market for the future. I think it is also our role to refine the perspectives that people have about vocational training institutions. Growing up, going to secondary school, high school, the perception was that if you go to a vocational training institution, you are not intelligent. And during our time, those schools were called F2. So if you were going to F2 to do technical skills, you were viewed as not intelligent. But if you look at the labor market for today, the labor market is deficient of skills from artisans and the like. All of us, we want our children to be doctors, to be lawyers, to be accountants. That is good, that is perfect. But let's also look at what are the opportunities for technical skills when we are preparing our organizations for the future. Leveraging on digital technologies will also help companies to compete, to innovate, and to become more productive. And yes, productivity gains must be shared. It is also critical in this context to also ensure that productivity and wages track each other at all times as we work on competitiveness. In many developed and developing countries, we are still far from modernizing our regulatory systems to ensure that they are aligned with the times. So the issue of partnerships with government, partnerships with other UN agencies to see what value addition they can bring to your organizations to ensure that you move with the times to harness the opportunities that are brought with by the fourth industrial revolution. Then the other issue that I need to raise from the work that I do in the ILO is to highlight the relevance of respecting rights at work within the context of the future of work. It is our perspective as the ILO that there is no future for decent work without respect in law and in practice for fundamental principles and rights at work and the rule of law as enshrined in the ILO conventions and in human rights conventions. And we are happy as the ILO to report that we have assisted the country of Swaziland over many years to ensure that their laws, particularly laws that govern the labor market, are aligned to international labor standards. And I wish to congratulate our social partners for the commitment and the seriousness in which they have realized the fact that there is no decent work without respect for fundamental principles and rights at work. Linked to the issue of rights is the need to respect freedom of association for individuals, businesses, workers, and other organizations to express themselves on how they see the future and how they want to shape the future. The issue of social dialogue is also very, very important for us to shape the future that we want it means that we have to be engaging, we have to be talking. Not only talking and consulting people that we agree with, but even people that have views and scenarios about the future of work that we don't agree with. We need to engage them. So the issue of broadening our partnerships becomes very, very important. Let me end by committing the ILO support to this initiative, which is also contributing in a lot of ways to the global conversations that are taking place in the future of work. We are hoping to receive the final report of your convention, and it is going to be an input into the centenary initiatives of the ILO. I leave you with some of these tips that as an organization that is responsible for developing human resources capacity within Swaziland, we need to continue to be proactive and to be ahead of the curve, to work with research institutions and academics so that they can continue to inform you on current trends globally, best practices, and models that have worked elsewhere to inform the business strategies for the future. We also need to take initiatives to preempt the opening of discussions and negotiations. And I think the organization of this convention under this theme is something that shows that we are working ahead of the curve. We need not wait to be invited. Going forward, if you know or are informed that ILO is in Swaziland discussing issues of the future of work, occupy that space and also enrich those discussions with your perspectives. The ILO wishes you good discussions. We are also staying for the rest of the convention, although we were invited only to deliver opening remarks. But as we have already alluded to, the program is so rich with information, examples, and reflections that will inform the centenary initiatives of the ILO. I thank you very much for your attention and for the invitation once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inviolata. I will ask the acting president to just give our token of appreciation for the presentation you have just made. Okay, thank you very much, Inviolata, for that keynote address. I was teasing her in the morning to say this name sounds very Catholic, more like Sister Inviolata. She missed her calling, but it was a gain for us in this field. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make a few announcements. First of all, I want to confirm that your program will come, so you'll be able to follow what we are doing. But those who are IPM members who received the program online before we came here. I would like to also remind you that there will be elections after lunch. That will be the last item. As you are aware, those who are members, that the president resigned after a few days in office. Hence, we have the acting president. Nominations for this process have long finished according to the Constitution. So all we have to do today is just vote. And I would like to introduce Babe Mkwanazi, just so you see him, is our electoral officer and a member of the advisory board of the IPM. I also, my colleague has disappeared now. I wanted to introduce Chazile. I will be working with her, so you won't have me all the time. We'll have male, female, till we finish. The first presentation was a keynote address, so that's why we are not allowing questions. But from now on, the rest of the presentations, there will be space for you to ask questions. Just raise your hand, a microphone will be brought to where you are, and then we request that you just go straight to the question. Don't tell stories, just straight to the question so that you can get a straight answer. Inviolata has mentioned that us at Ready, we were responsible for putting together the Swaziland position paper on the future of work. And one of the interesting things was how polarized the views of the social partners were on the issue of digitalization. And